Concede nobis, Domine, misericordiam Tuam. Domine, exaudi rationem meam.
Et cor meus atteneat.
Dominus vobiscum.
Et substitutum tuum.
Oremus. Exaudi nos, Domine Sancte, Pater omnipotens aeterni Deus, et mitere dignare sanctum angelum tuum de celis, qui custodiat, foveat, protegat, visitet, atque defendat omnes habitantes in hoc habitaculo, per Christum Dominum nostrum.
Factus est,
Aiutorimus Deus meus.
nil gigante Domine fortitudo mea, Domine firmamentum meum et refugium meum.
Liberator meus, factus est, aiutor meus Deus meus.
Deus meus adiutor meus,
Exela homine eum, factus est, aiutor meus Deus meus.
lautariem invocabat Dominum,
Et ad inimicis meus amus ero, factus est, aiutor meus Deus meus.
circumdederunt me fluctus mortis,
Et volentes mea conturbaverunt me, factus est, aiutor meus Deus meus.
in tribulatione mea invocavi Dominum,
Et ad Deum meum clamami, factus est, aiutor meus Deus meus.
exaudivit de templo sua voce meam,
Et amor meus in conspectu eius introivit in aures meus. Factus est, aiutor meus Deus meus.
In nomine Patris et Filii Spiritus Sancti,
Amen.
Dominus vobiscum.
Et cum spiritu tuo.
Fratres, annuscamus peccata nostra, ut aptissimus ad sacra mysteria celebranda. Confitio Deo omnipotente, et vobis fratres, qui epigavi nibis, cogitatione, verbo, oper, omissione, mea culpa, mea maxima culpa, ideo pecor beatam Mariam semper Virginem, omnes angelos et sanctos, et vos fratres orare pro me, ad omnem Deum nostrum. Miseriatur nostri omnipotens Deus, et missis peccatis nostris, perduca nos a vitam aeterna. Gloria in excelsis Deo. Oremus. Respice nos rerum omnium Deus creatore rector, et ut tua propitiationis ansiamus effectum, toto nos tribue tibi corde servire. Per Dominum nostrum Iesum Christum Filium Tuum, qui tecum vivere relenat in unitate Spiritus Sancti, Deus per omnia saecula saeculorum. Amen.
A reading from the book of Exodus. The Lord said to Moses, "Go down at once to your people, whom you brought out of the land of Egypt, for they have become afraid. They have soon turned aside from the way I pointed out to them, making for themselves an golden calf and worshiping it, sacrificing it and crying out, 'This is your God, O Israel, who brought you out of the land of Egypt.' I see how stiff-necked this people is, continued the Lord to Moses. Let me alone then, let my wrath blaze up against them to consume them. Then I will make of you a great nation." But Moses implored the Lord his God, saying, "Why, O Lord, should your wrath blaze up against your own people, whom you brought out of the land of Egypt, with such great power and with so strong a hand? Remember your servants Abraham, Isaac, and Israel, and how you swore to them by your own self, saying, 'I will make your descendants as numerous as the stars in the sky.' And all the land that I promised I will give your descendants as their perpetual heritage." So the Lord relented in the punishment he had threatened to inflict on his people. Verily,
I will rise and go to my Father.
La lectura de la primera carta del apóstol San Pablo a Timoteo. Querido hermano, doy gracias a aquel que me ha fortalecido, a nuestro Señor Jesucristo, por haberme considerado digno de confianza al ponerme a su servicio. A mí, que antes fui blasfemo y perseguí a la Iglesia con violencia, pero Dios tuvo misericordia de mí, porque en mi incredulidad obré por ignorancia, y la gracia de nuestro Señor se desbordó sobre mí, al darme la fe y el amor que provienen de Cristo Jesús. Puedes fiarte de lo que voy a decirte y aceptarlo sin reservas, que Cristo Jesús vino a este mundo a salvar a los pecadores, de los cuales y soy el primero. Pero Cristo Jesús y perdonó para que fuera el primero en quien Él manifestara toda su generosidad y sirviera, y de ejemplo a los que habían de creer en Él para obtener la vida eterna, al Rey eterno, inmortal, invisible, único Dios, honor y gloria por los siglos de los siglos. Amén. Verbum Domini.
Deo gratias.
Dominus vobiscum. Lectio Sancti Evangelii secundum Lucam.
Gloria a te, Domine.
Tax collectors and sinners were all drawing near to listen to Jesus. But the Pharisees and scribes began to complain, saying, "This man welcomes and eats with sinners. He welcomes sinners and eats with them." So to them he addressed this parable. "What man among you, having 100 sheep and losing one of them, would not leave the 99 in the desert and go after the lost one until he finds it? And when he does find it, he sets it on his shoulders with great joy. And upon his arrival home, he calls together his friends and neighbors and says to them, 'Rejoice with me, because I have found my lost sheep.' I tell you, in just the same way, there will be more joy in heaven over one sinner who repents than over 99 righteous people who have no need of repentance. Or what woman, having 10 coins and losing one, would not light a lamp and sweep the house, searching carefully until she finds it? And when she does find it, She calls together her friends and neighbors and says to them, "Rejoice with me because I have found the coin that I lost." In just the same way, I tell you, there will be rejoicing among the angels of God over one sinner who repents. Then he said, "A man had 2 sons, and the younger son said to his father, 'Father, give me the share of your estate that should come to me.' So the father divided the property between them. After a few days, the younger son collected all his belongings and set out for a distant country, where he squandered his inheritance on a life of dissipation. When he had freely spent everything, a severe famine struck that country, and he found himself in dire need. So he hired himself out to one of the local citizens, who sent him to his farm to tend the swine. And he longed to eat his fill of the pods on which the swine fed, but nobody gave him any. Coming to his senses, he thought, 'How many of my father's hired workers have more than enough to eat? But here I am, dying of hunger. I shall get up and go to my father, and I shall say to him, Father, I have sinned against heaven and against you. I no longer deserve to be called your son. Treat me as you would treat one of your hired workers.' So he got up and went back to his father. And while he was still a long way off, his father caught sight of him and was filled with compassion. He ran to his son, embraced him, and kissed him. His son said to him, 'Father, I have sinned against heaven and against you. I no longer deserve to be called your son.' But his father ordered the servants, 'Quickly, bring the finest robe and put it on him. Put a ring on his finger and sandals on his feet. Take the fattened calf and slaughter it. Then let us celebrate with a feast, because this son of mine was dead and has come to life again. He was lost and has been found.' Then the celebration began. And now the older son had been out in the field, and on his way back, as he neared the house, he heard the sound of music and dancing. He called one of the servants and asked what this might mean. The servant said to him, 'Your brother has returned, and your father has slaughtered the fattened calf, because he has him back safe and sound.' He became angry, and when he refused to enter the house, his father came out and pleaded with him. He said to his father in reply, 'Look, all these years I have served you, and not once did I disobey your orders. Yet you never gave me even a young goat to feast on with my friends. But when your son returns, who swallowed up your property with prostitutes, for him you slaughter the fattened calf.' He said to him, 'My son, you are here with me always. Everything I have is yours. But now we must celebrate and rejoice, because your brother was dead and has come to life again. He was lost and has been found.'" The Gospel of the Lord. Well, good afternoon. How's everybody doing? We have a whole lot of announcements, so I'm going to go through these like an auctioneer, okay? Really, muy rápido los anuncios, porque hay muchísimos. Las clases de rica para los adultos y estudiantes de la escuela secundaria va a comenzar a fines de septiembre. Y también la educación religiosa dominical para niños comienza el próximo domingo 18 de septiembre. Los formularios de registración están alocados en la entrada de la iglesia. RCIA for adults and also for teenagers begins at the end of September, and also next week begins our summer religious education program next Sunday. The registration forms are in the entrance to the church. Estamos comenzando un nuevo programa de educación religiosa para los niños con necesidades especiales. Si ustedes conocen a alguien que tiene un hijo o un nieto o cualquier persona o un amigo que tiene un hijo con necesidades especiales, por favor avísenlos que tenemos un programa para esos chicos que va a comenzar el 9 de octubre. Entonces, por más información, para obtener más detalles, hable con Padre Nicolás. Y mi hermana está la encargada de ese programa y es un maestro de niños con necesidades. So we're going to begin October 9th a program for children with special needs for religious education. My sister is a special needs educator and specialist, so she's with some other teachers from the parish. She's going to be beginning this program for us here at St. Anthony's. So it's going to begin the 9th of October. If you have children or grandchildren or know people with children that have special needs, please let them know. It's going to be a wonderful program, really special program. La primera caminata del grupo de excursionistas, los Ramblers, es el próximo sábado 17 de septiembre. Hay más detalles en la entrada de la iglesia. The Ramblers group for the hikes, the hiking group, is going to begin next Saturday. So be there or be square. Don't miss out. It's going to be a lot of fun. So if you can make it, come. There's information out in the entrance and you can sign up there. La Sociedad de San Antonio se reúne por la primera vez del año el miércoles, el 14 de septiembre a las 7 de la tarde. La Sociedad de San Antonio es para hombres mayores de 18 años y está dedicada a la preservación de la herencia italiana de nuestra parroquia y la historia de nuestra parroquia como una iglesia para inmigrantes también. Entonces es muy importante. Y la transmisión de nuestra fe. Cualquier persona que está interesada está invitada a asistir y no es necesario ser italiano. Yo soy cubano y irlandés, pero yo tengo parte en ese grupo. We have a group, the St. Anthony Society is going to be having their first meeting of the year. It's going to be the 14th of September at 7 p.m. It's for any men 18 years or older, and it's really to preserve the Italian heritage of our parish and our parish's history of welcoming immigrants. So, and to retain our history as an Italian parish. You don't have to be Italian to belong to the group. They do a lot of really cool stuff for the parish. I'm Cuban and Irish, and I'm a member of the group. So everybody can be a member of the group. So it's Society of St. Anthony, so that's, look at the bulletin for more details. Los exploradores escolásticos con maestros para ayudar a los niños con su tarea y para avanzar en su educación va a comenzar mañana, después de escuela, cada día. Para ayudar a los niños en su tarea y otras cosas. Our Scholastic Explorers begins tomorrow for children to help them with their homework and to help them advance educationally, and it's after school each day. Let's see. Also, tonight we have Junior Youth and Children's Oratory. Esta noche tenemos los oratorios juvenil de los juniors y de los niños esta noche a las 7 de la tarde. Okay, that's enough, right? Yeah. It's the beginning of the year, so we have a lot of stuff starting up again. Es el comienzo del año, entonces tenemos muchas cosas que están comenzando de nuevo este año. How often have you heard the story of the prodigal son? Raise your hand if you've heard that story a lot. Raise your hand. Si ha leído la historia del hijo pródigo, levanta sus manos. Yeah, everybody. We read it over and over again. It's probably my favorite gospel story in all of the Bible. But when I think about it, I realize that many of us, even though we kind of believe it intellectually, we don't believe it deep down in our hearts. Either we don't believe it for ourselves or we don't believe it for somebody else. And by that I mean we don't believe really in the depths of our hearts sometimes that God could love us that much. And that God's forgiveness is really like the forgiveness of the Father in the story of the prodigal son. Sometimes we think that maybe something we've done or many things we've done are so great that there's no way that God could forgive us. And if He does forgive us, there's no way that He could do so with the great joy that we see in this story today of the prodigal son. Or we might think that maybe God can't forgive somebody else just as joyfully, because maybe we sometimes only begrudgingly forgive others. But we don't do so with great joy. We hold on to the little bit of hurt, there was a show, and I remember one of the women was talking, the woman in the show was saying to her husband who had done something wrong to her, it's going to eat at me and eat at me until it kills you. right? You know, not letting go of the things, but keeping on beating people up over them. So sometimes we don't believe in this forgiveness for ourselves, and sometimes we don't believe that God really could forgive them, another person, especially somebody who's hurt us, in the way that the Father forgives in the story of the prodigal son. But it's not only we who have difficulty believing it. Imagine those who first heard it. The Pharisees and the tax collectors, they would have been shocked to hear Jesus tell this story for a couple of reasons. First, from what I understand, there was another story that was circulating at this time in Israel at that time among the people. It wasn't a religious story, it was a cautionary tale. And it started out very similar to the story of the prodigal son that Jesus tells, about a son who asks his father for his inheritance and goes and squanders it. But that story ends very differently than what Jesus says. So they were familiar. Once Jesus started the story, they would have been like, oh, we know how this is going to end. But Jesus twists it around, because in the story that they had heard, the father rejects the son, and the son loses everything. The son is cast out. And so Jesus flips that story up on its head to give us an example of what the Father's love and his forgiveness is all about. Because Jesus' story doesn't end like that, with the Father shunning him and all that. That was a cautionary tale to remind young people, don't disobey your parents, don't do the things that this boy did, or else you're going to face terrible consequences. But Jesus used that story, the beginning of it anyway, to teach people about the love of God, and about his mercy, and about how he forgives us and how he wants to forgive us. He turns that story up on the head. In the parable, we experience not only that the father kind of begrudgingly or reluctantly forgives his son, but that the father almost seems like he's leaping for joy, doesn't he, when you read this story? He goes bounding after his son with great joy in his heart that his son is on his way back to him. The Father rejoices in the act of forgiveness. And he goes overboard with his love, even to the point of making himself look a little foolish. Because the story tells us that as soon as the Father caught sight of the Son, the Father ran after him. Well, especially in the ancient world, fathers did not run after their children. Children would run to their father, but it would be a humiliation for the father to have to run to their child. And yet, in the story, Jesus is telling us that God the Father doesn't care about any of that stuff. And he's even willing to look foolish out of kind of a reckless abandon of love for us, a mercy for us. His forgiveness of his son is immediate in the story, without hesitation, and it's jubilant, the Father overflowing, effusive with joy. And you can see this from the very start. Yet do we really believe in the depths of our hearts that this is how God feels about us? That this is how he forgives us and loves us? Now, to be sure, we have to do our part. Imagine if the son had just stayed in the pig's pen and never got up to go to the Father. Would he have experienced this experience? No. He would have still been stuck in the slop of the pig's pen. He had to get up and return to the Father in order to receive this effusive love, this great love and compassion from the Father. So we have to do our part too. We can't just sit back and expect God to do everything. He wants our participation. So we need to get up off of our seats and get to the confessional. And go there. Not expect God to come and do things the way that we think he should do them, but we do things the way that he's told us to do them. And so he's given us the sacrament of confession. He's told us that that's where he's going to forgive us, so that's where we go to meet him. That's the house. That's why it looks, if you look at our confessionals, what do they look like? They look like a little house. What are it's supposed to represent? The Father's house in the story of the prodigal son. That's why our confessionals is shaped like a house. And when you walk into our confessionals, the first image that you see on the wall is a piece of art by Rembrandt. Guess what it is? The prodigal son being embraced by the Father after his return. That's what's happening in the confessional. You know, sometimes we can forget that what's really going on when we kneel down with our head bowed is that the Father in the confessional, through the priest, that he's lifting us up, he's putting a ring on our finger, which is establishing our position again in his family, and he's welcoming us back, and he's clothing us in his love and his warmth. That's what's going on in the confession. You're not just walking into a box and kneeling down. It's no ordinary event. You're the son returning to the Father in this story, and the Father is running after you to lift you up. So think about this. Do we really believe that he loves us like that? Do we really believe that he forgives us like that? It's important that we're able to say yes, because he really, really does love us and forgive us like that. And just a few words in Spanish, en pocas palabras en español. De verdad creemos que cuando entramos en el confesionario, somos como el hijo pródigo que se va a casa con la cabeza inclinada. Nos damos cuenta de que allí en el confesionario está el Padre corriendo hacia nosotros para levantarnos en gozo y llevarnos a casa con Él y restaurarnos a su familia. Por eso en los confesionarios que habíamos construido está el hermoso cuadro del Hijo Pródigo de Rembrandt. Está ahí para recordarnos a cada uno de nosotros que al entrar en el confesionario somos como el Hijo Pródigo que ha derrochado los dones de Dios en nuestros propios caprichos, deseos defectuosos y derroche. Pero que allí, en esa habitación, mientras estamos de rodillas, Dios está presente allí actuando a través del sacerdote, y Él está ahí levantándonos de nuestras rodillas, y al ponernos un anillo en los dedos nos está restaurando a nuestro papel anterior en la familia y nos reviste con la calidez de su amor y nos lleva a casa con Él. ¿Realmente creemos esto? ¿O creemos la otra historia que cerca en la época de Jesús, que dice, si Dios perdona así, entonces la gente simplemente se aprovechará? Debe ser más difícil que eso para ser perdonado. Debe haber consecuencias más graves. Bueno, tal vez habrá consecuencias naturales más graves por el mal que hemos hecho, pero el perdón del Señor es algo diferente. El perdón de Dios es así de fácil, así de profundo y así de gozoso. Todo lo que necesitamos es dolor por lo que hemos hecho, un deseo de enmendar nuestra vida con la ayuda de su gracia y la ayuda de nuestros hermanos en la iglesia, y entrar en el sacramento de la confesión, y ahí, como el Hijo Pródigo, derramar nuestro dolor. Qué tonto sería continuar revoleándose en el corral del cerdo del pecado, la pérdida y la angustia, y no simplemente levantarse, volver a casa y ser restaurado. Credo in unum Deum,
Padre omnipotente, amor Jesu Christus,
parte fratres, umium ad estrum sacrificium acceptabile, fiat apud Deum Patrem omnipotentem. Propitiare Domine supplicationibus nostris, et ad oblationes famulorum tuorum benignus assume, ut quod singuli ad honorem tui nominis obtulerunt, cunctis propitiat ad salutem, per Christum Dominum nostrum, Iesum Christum Filium Tuum, qui tecum vivere et regnat in unitate Spiritus Sancti, Deus per omnia saecula saeculorum.
Amen.
Dominus vobiscum,
Et spiritu tuo,
sussum corda, gratias segamus Domino Deo nostro, vere dignum et justum est, acum et salutare, nos tibi semper et ubique gratias agere, Domine Sancte Pater omnipotens aeterni Deus, per Christum Dominum nostrum, cuius hoc merificum fuit opus per speciali mysterium, ote peccato et mortis jugum ad on gloriam vocaremo, quanum genus electum, regale sacerdotium, gens sancta et acquisitiones populis ceremo, et tuas annunciaremus ubique virtutes, qui nos de tenebris altum admirabile lumen vocasti, et ideo, cum angelis et archangelis, cum tronis et dominationibus, cumque omni militia celestis exercitus, hymnum gloriae Tuae canimus fine dicentes. Vere sanctum es Domine, fond omni sanctitatis, ec ergo dona quesum Spiritus Tui Lore sanctifica, o nobis corpus et sanguis fiat, Domini nostri Iesu Christi. Qui cum passione voluntaria et redretor, accepi panem, et gratias angens fregit, derique discipulis suis dicens. Accipite et manducate ex hoc omnes, hoc est enim corpus meum, quod pro vobis tradetur. Simili modo, postquam tenatum est, accipiens et calicem, iterem tibi gratias angens, tere discipulis suis dicens. Accipite et bibite exo omnes, hic est enim calice sanguinis mei, novit aeterni testamenti, qui pro vobis et pro multis affundetur, in remissionem peccatorum, hoc facite in commemorationem. Mysterium Fidei. Sititor mortis resurrectionis eius, tibi Domine panem vitae, et calicem salutem oferimus. Gratias agentes qui nos dignus abuisti, estare cura te et tibi ministerare, et supplices te precamur, ut corporis et sanguinis Christi participes, a Spiritus Sancto congregemur in unum. Recordare, Domine, ecclesiae tue toto orbe defusse, votem in caritate perficias, una cum Papa nostro Francisco et Episcopo nostro Davide et universo claro. Memento etiam frastrum nostrorum, quins per resurrectionis ornierunt, omniumque in tua miseratione defunctorum, et eos in nomen votus tui admitte, omnium nostrum quesumus miserere, ut cum beata Beatrice Virgine Maria, beato Iosef eus Sponso, beatis apostolis et omnibus sanctis, qui tibi a saeculo placerunt, aeterne vitae meriamores et consortes, et te laudemus et glorificemus, per Filium Tuum, Iesum Christum. Per ipsum et cum ipso et in ipso, est tibi Deo Patri omnipotenti, in unitate Spiritus Sancti, omnis honor et gloria per omnia saecula saeculorum. Recepti salutaribus moniti, et benedictioni formati, audemus dicere, Pater noster, qui es in celis, sanctificetur nomen tuum, adveniat regnum tuum, fiat voluntas tua, sicut in cielo et in terra. Panem nostrum quotidianum da nobis hodie, et dimitte nobis debita nostra, sicut et nos dimittimus debitoribus nostris, et ne nos inducas in tentationem, sed libera nos a malo. Libera nos quesumus, Domine, ab omnibus malis, da propitius patem in diebus nostri, ut opie misericordiae tu adiuti, et a peccato simus semper liberi, et ab omni perturbazione securi, expectantes beatum spem, et aventum Salvatoris nostri Iesu Christi.
Qui tuum regnum et potestas et gloria in saecula.
Domine Iesu Christi, qui existi apostolis tuis, pacem linco vobis, pacem meam do vobis. Ne despicias peccata nostra, sed fidem ecclesiae tue, e amque secundum voluntatem tuam, pacificari et coadunari digneris, quies renas in saecula saeculorum.
Amen.
Pax Domini sit semper vobiscum.
Et cum spiritu tuo.
Ecce agnus Dei, ecce qui tollit peccatum mundi, beati qui ad canem agnificati sunt. Domine, potentes et tecum, sed tantum dicere, et senabitur anima mea.
Cantabo Domino,
Qui bona tribui vidi,
usque quod Domine oblivisceris me in fine,
usque quaeris faciem tuam ave, cantabo Domino, qui bona tribui
usque quod bonam consilia in anima mea, dolorem in cor
Oremus. Mentis nostra et corpora possidea, quesumus Domine, doni celestis operatio, uno nostre sensus in nobis, sed eius preveniat semper effectus, per Christum Dominum nostrum. Amen. Dominus vobiscum. Benedicat vos omnipotens Deus, Pater et Filius et Spiritus Sanctus. Amen. Ite missa est. Deo gratias.